Okay. Hello, bonjour, Tansei. I'm Christine Massing. I'm an associate professor of early childhood education. I'd like to acknowledge that we are hosting this webinar from the University of Regina, which is situated on Treaty 4 lands with a presence in Treaty 6. These are the territories of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. As a settler and guest living and working in this territory, I have been learning and continuing to learn about the colonial histories, the many harms which were inflicted on Indigenous children and their families in the past, as well as those that continue to this day. Today, these lands continue to be the shared territory of many diverse peoples from near and far. And in reflecting on this past and our future together, I recognize my own privilege and commit myself to doing what I can to repair these harms by identifying and challenging the oppressive structures of settler colonialism. Welcome to this second webinar in the Sketching Narratives of Movement Towards Comprehensive and Competent Early Childhood Educational Systems Across Canada project. This project is a partnership between early childhood researchers and instructors at 8 institutions. And our goal is to capture changes that have already taken place in ECEC policy, practice, and pedagogy, as well as to document and mobilize ongoing narratives of change. It is our hope that these local and provincial narratives will inform a federal response that finally ensures a universal, competent system of accessible, affordable, and equitable childcare. We might be getting a little bit closer, but we don't want to get our hopes up quite yet. We're very grateful to the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada for funding this project. So this webinar is entitled Early Childhood Educators Sketching Narratives of Change, Gestures and Situated Responses to the Potential of a Pan-Canadian ECEC System. Our conversationalists are educators from across Canada who have generously agreed to share their expertise, experiences, and time with us. So I'd like to hand this over to our moderators, Dr. Pam Whitty and Alexandra Paquette, who will facilitate this conversation. Thank you.
Hi, it's Pam Whitty speaking, and I've been working in early childhood for 45 years. My first year was in childcare, and I just retired from the University of New Brunswick, so I really feel privileged and honored to be working with these folks from all across Canada. I live and work on the Wolastoqey territory along the Wolastoq River, and it's unsurrendered, unceded, and unpurchased territory. And at the moment, there are many people trying to reclaim the original name of the St. John River, which is the Wolastoq. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Joining you from Montreal on the unceded territory of the Ghanaian Kahaga people, and I'm a master's student and a research assistant for various projects in ECE, and I will be moderating this first part of the conversation. And so I would like to invite Véronique to present herself.
Bonjour, je suis Véronique McMillan, je suis éducatrice en CPE au Québec et étudiante en éducation à l'Université du Québec à Montréal. Je suis éducatrice responsable d'un groupe en immersion anglaise auprès des 4-5 ans à Montréal.
Merci, thank you. And so we're moving on to Song. If you can please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Alex. Hi, everyone. I'm Song Sirichai Limpanat Pongpan. Sawadee. I am originally from Thailand and I immigrated to Canada 10 years ago. I started my ECE journey in 2012. And right now I work for University of Toronto. I live and work on the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississauga of the Credit River.
Thank you very much. And we move on to Mallory, please.
Sego, Galadukta, Mallory, ni Youngyats, Dwasa Asa, not de Wagosiliago, Waganyakta, Ganika Haga ni Wagohuan Joda, Oswego, Ganagale, Gadu, Six Nations, Ontario, Sheridan Ungada de Wiensta. So I'll just translate for everybody. Hello, my name is Mallory Johns. I am 23 years old and I belong to the Mohawk Nation and Turtle Clan. I live in Oswego, Ontario, and I am from the Six Nations Grand River Territory. I had attended Sheridan College for 4 years to doing my bachelor's program in the Oakville campus, and then 2 extra years doing the BA program in Brampton. And I have been working at my local childcare center on the reserve. And I have been working from a range of children from infancy to preschool.
Thank you very much. We have two Christina taking part of this conversation, and we acknowledge their territories. So we're gonna ask Christina from Northwest Territory to present herself.
Hi, my name is Christina Bogus, and I live and teach in the Northwest Territories. I am a teacher at a school, and I teach a multi-age grouping that's comprised of junior kindergarten, and grade 1 students. I would like to acknowledge the land that I am speaking from today as the traditional Chief Dragies Territory, the home of the Yellowknives Dene First Nation, and home of the North Slave Métis Alliance, the Treaty 8 Territory.
Thank you. Moving on, we're going to have the presentation from Daniel, please.
Hi there, everyone. My name's Daniel Linskog Wilson, and I'm here in Vancouver on the unceded and ancestral territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam First Nations, and I'm happy to be here. I am currently a preschool teacher, but I work as a substitute in 2 different centers. So I'm everywhere from infants to 5 years old right now. And then I also work as a college instructor teaching new ECEs.
Thank you very much. And can Safa please present yourself to us?
Marhaba, assalamu alaikum. I am Safa from Regina, Saskatchewan. I have a bachelor degree in art and level 1 in ECE. I was teaching in Jordan and Dubai before I came to Canada. And now I am a teacher at the Early Learning Center. Our center was founded in 1977, and I consider myself to be lucky to work in this place because our center works with low-income families to foster the healthy development of their child from prenatal to 5 years old. Our center has 4 classes. We have 1 teacher and 1 TA in each class, and each class has 24 children. 12 children come in the morning and for about 3 hours, and another 12 children who came in the afternoon. So we have about 94 children in the whole school. We also provide transportation for the children who need it. I had the chance to work with Indigenous children and families, and also learn some Cree, some numbers in Cree and some words. I also work with the immigrants and refugee families, and I sometimes help translate for those whose first language is Arabic. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like Janice now to express some words about herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Janice Young and I am an early childhood educator in an inclusive center, and we are on UPC campus. So we're on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. And I've been teaching for about 7 years now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And we move to Brittany. Can you tell us more about yourself?
Hello. So my name is Brittany and I am in Edmonton, Alberta, situated on Treaty 6 territory. I am the senior manager of an early learning program within MacEwan University, servicing students, staff, and faculty, the greater Edmonton community. We are an inclusive childcare program and a lab school, so we support students across campus and different faculties with practical experience with children. So early learning, speech pathology, phys ed, nursing, library program, and many more. So it's a exciting program and I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you. And our last conversationalist is Christina from New Brunswick. Can you tell us more about you?
Thank you, Alex. Good morning. My name is Christina Dreyer. I'm a mom of 5, and I live here in rural New Brunswick with Pam Whitty on the Woolastook territory. I'm representing Atlantic Canada this morning, and I'm here in rural New Brunswick in a village of about 600 people. Our daycare center here in Centerville is it's a nonprofit designated center for New Brunswick. We have 60 full-time children in our care. I am the assistant director of the center, as well as an ECE mentor for our staff. We have a staff of 16. I wear many hats. I am in as many classrooms as I'm needed, and I've been doing this now for 16 years. Absolutely love what I do, and I'm so excited to be here this morning.
Thank you all for those words, and so we can know more about who's expressing themselves today.
Thank you to everyone for being here and saying a little bit about yourself, so we have a sense of the kind of difference across Canada and the diversity across Canada, and how things might differ from place to place will probably come out in the conversation. So for those of you who are participating, listening to us, the conversationalists and the part of the team met last Saturday, and we went through a series of topics and co-planned the meeting. So we have about 6 topics, and people have chosen what they would like to respond to. So the first topic that we're looking at is has to do with support to families and children in a couple of points in time. When the pandemic started and things shut down, how did people stay connected? And now that there's so much COVID going on in all across the country, the cases are increasing. When we spoke last weekend, the childcare educators are really concerned about what's going to happen and how will they stay connected with families during the remainder of COVID. And 4 people were going to speak to this: Mallory, Christina, and Safa. So Mallory, maybe you could start. Although I think you're going to translate the question, right, Alex?
Oui. Alors, la question, le sujet de discussion tourne autour de quel type d'action avez-vous mis en place ou mettrez-vous en place lors des confinements dus à la pandémie pour soutenir les familles et les enfants? And so, Mallory, you can start.
Okay, so my center has been doing a lot to trying to adjust to keep up with all of the changes that has been happening through the pandemic. So we've been doing a lot of the online learning, the e-learning, through lots of Zoom meetings and instructional videos. We do our best to keep connection with the families and the children weekly. We also make our own, and we send and deliver our own activity packages to the families, along with video instructions as well that can be found on YouTube in their own little private profile. We also have a breakfast program at the center, and it delivers breakfast to the families. And we also have community food bags as well that can be picked up. And they all contain all the healthy foods and meeting food allergies for certain children as well. And we have been doing the best we can to stay connected with families. We have also encouraged families to try some of the strategies to even adapt children to the global change. We had actually recently made a video and sent it home to the families in the form of a learning circle that usually happens within the daily routine to promote the positivity of wearing face masks, because that's what's going on now, and to kind of more or less prepare the children and the families to some of the changes that are going to happen when they return back to school. So we have presented, the book is called The Task of the Mask. I'm not too sure if anybody has gotten this resource yet, but it is a story for children in the form of, again, like a circle that we use props as well to support the children through the learning of the story. And we're just trying to promote this new change to prepare the children and the families when the reopening happens, and to support them through the pandemic as well.
Thank you, Mallory. That's so thoughtful and comprehensive. A lot of care. So I think Christina from the Northwest Territories is up next to share what you've been doing.
We've had a very similar experience. When our school closed after March break in March, we were doing distance learning from March until June. And very similar to a lot of the things that Mallory spoke about, we did online videos with the kids, showing them families different things that we did on a daily basis, helping them to still try and feel connected to school. We also had weekly Zoom calls and phone calls home with homeroom classes, as well as our language teacher and our language classes. We worked to build and sustain relationships with the kids and the families in the community. And we actually did a staff driving parade through the community we teach in, to kind of, help the kids to see us and see that we're still here, and help to maintain that connection. We also sometimes did socially distanced outdoor gatherings to try and maintain and preserve some of the traditions of the school that we usually do in the springtime. We usually have lots of different events, such as our camp week, which we couldn't quite do the same. So instead, we created a camp week package to send home that contained some plush fish, plush dry fish, learning materials, cards, videos, and lots of different things for the kids to still feel that connection to school. And we also had a socially distanced celebration day where parents and their kids could come. And so we still kind of had our kindergarten graduation where the parents had hats and they got to put them on their kids, and everyone still got to be there outside and socially distanced in a safe way, just to keep everyone connected. Since the fall, though, since September, we have returned to school, and that's looked very different, and it's been quite a change for a lot of our families and kids, and things that everyone's had to come to understand. And so we've really tried to maintain that connection. And one of the difficulties we've faced is not being allowed visitors and guests into the school. So maintaining that home school connection, checking in with parents and doing those things. And a big way we've done that is adapting our routine to have kind of an end of the day outdoor dismissal, where the teachers are out on the playground and getting to meet the families and visit them in that way. And it's also coming up next week as we have parent-teacher interviews, and trying to do that in a way where we can't hold them in the school. So we've worked out to set up a teepee outside of our school that we can meet with parents in and their families and still get those meaningful discussions, and have that time to build that connection as well. And it was really important, especially with the new junior kindergarten students entering the school, and helping them to feel welcome and connected and safe.
A lot of problem solving. Christina.
It's great that I go right after Christina, not because we share the same name, but we're very much the same here in rural New Brunswick. It's the biggest thing that we've been able to do is keep that connection with our families, and encouraging all of our educators here to communicate daily with the parents of our children. Because we serve mostly 0 to 5, they aren't on Zoom calls or meetings or anything like that. And we're very much an inquiry-based, interest-based learning center. So what we are able to do, especially if a child is sent home or excluded for a 2-week period, is that we have connected so well with the families that they are allowing their children to use their phones or their devices, whatever they have at home, and they will jump onto our private group pages we've created. So every classroom in our center has a private Facebook page where their class posts videos, pictures, we read our stories together, we sing our songs together there, and we record it so that at whatever time of the day it's convenient for the families, the children can still check in and see what their friends have been doing that day, and still feel like they're a part of what we're doing. So our biggest thing that we've been able to do throughout the pandemic and since reopening is just staying connected with our families and inviting them to take part and to tap into what interests their child and kind of carry that over at home, and to be offering some of the same things we're doing at school with their children at home.
Thank you so much connecting. Yeah. And so we're going to close this topic off with Safa. If people have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, as Mari's taking care of the chat.
Yeah,
Safa.
we almost did the same. So we prepared several kits for the children, and we called them every week to ask about the children and if they need any help. We also prepared packages for the families. We recorded some videos for the children to watch on our page on Facebook. Like songs, stories, and art activities. In June, we went on a graduation parade all over the city with all the vans drive, the center vans, and the teachers to give the children their portfolios. This year, we are planning to make a private Facebook page for our families and children, and we will also have to live meeting with the children and continue reading our stories and activities from our calendar. For example, my children are interested in dinosaurs. When we were planning for November, the children showed interest in dinosaur prints. So we have decided to prepare an activity kit with that will be sent for the children to play with at home. I will also streaming live with them and reading a story that they like about dinosaurs. Finally, I will ask the parents to take photos of their children while doing these activities and send it to my email to put it in their portfolios for their yearly book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So many similar and different things are going on as you speak, and probably that people listening can relate to. So thank you. So I'm moving that over to Alex for the next topic and a different group of people.
Avant que j'entame la discussion sur le deuxième sujet, je veux juste rappeler qu'il y a la traduction simultanée et qui se trouve en bas de l'écran du chat du Zoom. Vous pouvez cliquer sur il y a un petit CC et là, vous affichez les sous-titres si vous avez besoin. Thank you for that. And Véronique is speaking French too. If you need the English translation of what she's saying, Joanne is doing that within the chat. So la deuxième conversation porte sur, en fait, durant ce moment de pandémie qui est particulier, qu'est-ce que ça représente d'être un éducateur, une éducatrice pour vous en ce moment? Pam, do you want to translate that?
So what does it mean for you to be an early childhood educator at this moment in time? And think about one thing you'd like to share. And I think there's 5 people here: Veronique, Song, Christina from the Northwest Territories, and Mallory and Safa. Thank you.
Merci. Donc, Véronique, c'était la première à t'exprimer sur ce sujet.
Bonjour. J'avais écrit un texte sur qu'est-ce que ça représentait que d'être une éducatrice en temps de pandémie pour moi. Puis c'était un super bon texte, mais plus je le relisais, plus il semblait faux, en fait, parce que les mots que je voyais décrits sur mon écran, c'était pas vraiment les mots que j'avais en tête. Parce que quand j'écrivais sur l'importance du lien d'attachement entre une éducatrice, les enfants et leurs apprentissages, mais j'avais en tête des recherches d'Harvard sur la trajectoire de vie et sur l'importance des expériences de vie vécues par les enfants dans la petite enfance, dans les premières années de leur vie. Quand j'écrivais sur les intentions pédagogiques qui sont cachées derrière chaque petit geste des éducatrices, j'avais en tête ATI et ces données probantes sur l'importance de la fréquentation d'un service de garde de qualité pour les enfants. Puis j'ai réfléchi, puis je me suis rendu compte que je m'étais empêchée de dire ce que j'avais en tête. Je me suis mitigée un peu parce que j'avais peur d'être trop politisée. Puis en réfléchissant, j'en suis venue à la conclusion que bien que même si je décidais de prendre en compte ce point de vue-là politique, mais ça restait omniprésent dans mon rôle d'éducatrice. Parce que quand on parle de politique, mais on parle de subventions ministérielles, puis on parle de services publics nécessairement. Donc, tout est interrelié. Ici au Québec, la majorité des services de garde éducatifs, ils sont régis et subventionnés par le ministère de la Famille. C'est un ministère qui, j'en suis certaine, est rempli de bonnes intentions et a à cœur le développement des enfants, mais c'est aussi un ministère qui coupe dans le financement des services de garde depuis des années et nos services de garde ont de la difficulté à offrir des services de qualité aux enfants. On a des services de garde qui doivent gérer des ratios, des subventions, les conditions de travail du personnel, en plus des enfants qui présentent de plus en plus de difficultés d'adaptation et d'apprentissage. Et les répercussions, ils commencent à se faire sentir de plus en plus et ça nous inquiète, nous, les éducatrices. Parce qu'être éducatrice, c'est aussi connaître l'impact des services de garde sur la qualité c'est aussi connaître l'impact des services de garde de qualité sur les chances de réussite scolaire des enfants qui les fréquentent. C'est aussi voir les services de garde qui peinent à offrir des services de qualité à ces enfants-là. Être éducatrice, c'est un métier demandant avec des avantages sociaux qui sont peu avantageux, puis un salaire qui l'est encore moins, malheureusement. On a de la difficulté à recruter du personnel qualifié. Et plutôt que de reconnaître l'importance de la petite enfance et de ses acteurs en améliorant les conditions de travail puis en valorisant notre profession, mais on diminue encore les ratios d'éducatrices qualifiées dans nos centres, dans nos services de garde. Mais être éducatrice, c'est aussi tout faire pour que les enfants dont on s'occupe ne se rendent jamais compte qu'on n'a pas les moyens ni le temps de subvenir à leurs besoins. Être éducatrice, c'est de savoir que même si la science nous confère un rôle fondamental dans le développement des enfants, mais on a encore besoin que la société, elle lise les données.
Merci beaucoup, Véronique, pour cette position et cette affirmation de tes pensées. We are grateful for Véronique's ideas being put out. I will now ask Song what her is taught about this topic.
Hi again, everyone. So first of all, being an early childhood educator during this time is not easy. And especially our job in general, we are a person who develop community, a person who support the whole family, a person who care for those vulnerable children, right? At this point, I think the most challenging thing for myself is how do we keep and stay connected with family. Those meaningful and value connections become remotely, become 2 meters apart, become, almost impossible in some ways, in some center. And I think now is the time that we realize how we as an educator evolve and adapt to the situation. We all, I would say, ECEs across Canada, we are a survivor and the fighter. How many of us buy a new device, learn how to use technology, jump right into virtual learning without knowing anything 2 years in college, we never taught how to, you know, implement playbase in online platform. Now we create I would say us as an ECE, I'm so proud to be a part of this community and work for this sector, because we paved the way for those children that we work with every day, and we support the family. Like we make a phone call, hop on a Zoom call. You know, right now, I think we need to be seen, and people need to realize how important early childhood education it is. As we always say, education is the foundation. Who built the foundation? Those early years educator, that is us. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're hearing the pandemic gave us an opportunity to develop new skills also. And thank you. We're moving on to Christina from New Northwest Territory. What are your thoughts on this?
Hi again. Yes. I feel as though in my context, a lot of it has to do with adaptation and resiliency. And like you said, a lot of learning of new skills that as a teacher of young children, I've always felt the role of the caregiver and the mentor and the observer and a collaborator. But I'm feeling through this pandemic and our distance learning, as well as our return to school, as Song mentioned, a lot of new roles that we're taking on of being our own tech support and learning how to moderate a Zoom call with 4, 5, and 6-year-olds and how to help families to stay connected and helping them to get onto those tech things that, not everyone is the most tech savvy person, and myself is included in that. But also with our return to school, one thing we have to do is screen children every day for COVID symptoms, which is a new skill and a task, and helping them to understand what does shortness of breath mean? What does that look like? And with 4-year-olds, they're kind of like, yeah, I'm okay. And just helping them to, it's almost as though we're healthcare workers in that way a little bit. And then also with sanitizing and making sure that everyone is staying safe being in person. I feel very blessed and fortunate to be able to teach in person, but it's trying to maintain those sanitation requirements of cleaning after use or allowing 72 hours between use of different materials in order to be able to be open and to keep everyone safe and healthy. So I feel as though with the fear of jumping from remote to in-person to remote learning, it's a lot of adaptation for ourselves, for me as a teacher, and for the children. So
thank you for sharing your experience with us. Mallory, do you want to express yourself about this topic?
Sure. So what does it mean for me to be an ECE in this moment in time? So during this pandemic, I do find it really challenging times. I guess to keep in mind is that I am from Six Nations Reserve. That's where I live. And Six Nations is one of the biggest reserves. And we have approximately between 65,000 to 70,000 residents living on reserve. So since I have gotten laid off back in work in April due to Six Nations Council's low funding, there was actually a variety of departments who were laid off of work or overall lost their jobs completely. There was a limit of ECE positions from my work who were able to keep their jobs and still work from home. Since Six Nations Reserve is like a sovereign nation, the federal law can only influence our structure of the community, but it cannot be effective until it has actually been passed through or more or less approved by Six Nations Band Council. So we have been pending in the second phase of reopening since it feels like forever. So there is actually a limited amount of people who are working on reserve now. So since I've gotten laid off back in April, I found as an ECE, I had to challenge my role and keep gaining all these new experiences and to actually try to manipulate my time during quarantine. So overall, after time, I miss my job, I miss interacting with the children. And so I had decided to volunteer my time during the day teaching and assisting with e-learning, actually with my 4 younger cousins. I work with my cousins. One is in grade 7, 2 of them are in grade 5, and 1 of them are in grade 3. They actually attend an all-Mohawk immersion school located on our reserve. And I not only balance between the different grades and the different subjects and the Zoom meetings, but I also have to focus on the traditional languages and the cultural as well. So as an ECE, I believe it is our responsibility to challenge ourselves and to expand our own learning and to adapt to the new experiences and really try to take this as a learning opportunity to better ourselves and to better our practice.
That's a very powerful way of seeing things. Thank you. And we close this topic with Safa's ideas on this topic.
Okay. I always feel that our work is important because we are part of the children's well-being. We all want to add a lot of fun to their lives. After the pandemic started, I started to believe that our job is even more essential. When everything locked down back in March and the schools closed, we kept our centers open like many other daycares, to welcome the children of the frontline workers, including doctors, nurses, and police officers. When everything opened after the lockdown, I think we were the most sector that was challenged to work with young children who don't really understand much about what is going on. Our job meant to keep them safe, educate them, and at the same time to provide a playful environment to them. So many things in our school and classrooms have changed. For example, our classroom station only allow for only 2 people or 3 playing at the same station at one time. We had to cancel many big activities like group activities to help children to maintain social distance. We have also stopped encouraging children to share their toys or personal things. We also had to face big challenge of getting the children to wear face mask, especially since both the teachers and the children depend a lot on facial expressions to understand each other. So that was so hard.
Thank you. So this pandemic has brought new ideas and new ways of thinking and new imposition of different things, but everything is still connected, and I can see all of you still being passionate and wanting to move through it. And so with that, we will move to the third question, which I'll say in French. Donc, dans ce contexte actuel de la pandémie, quel serait un changement significatif pour vous vers un mouvement pour un système pan-canadien des services de garde éducatifs?
Before I read the question in English, I'm so moved I can hardly speak, actually. You're providing all of this work that you do, and you've made it really clear that you're committed, you're part of a community, you create community, and you're deeply underfunded, and in some cases have lost your work, but haven't stopped working. So the question, you all know that the federal government has made the announcement from the throne speech that they are going to provide the funding and infrastructure for an affordable, inclusive, and high quality childcare. So in light of the current pandemic, what would meaningful change look like for you where you are? And I think Christina's from New Brunswick is going first, and Song and Daniel and Veronique. I can't thank you enough for your expertise and willingness to be here.
Thanks so much, Pam. I had to get comfortable for this question because this is the one that I get really emotional and really passionate about. I'm touching on the subject of the broad idea of what is ECE and how is it valued and how can we provide a deeper understanding for what it is that we do. As an ECE, an early childhood educator, we are looking at the child between the ages of 0 to 5. And between those ages of 0 to 5, there is such a small window, but it's such a deep and impactful little area that we have to mold and shape our future generations. And here in New Brunswick, we have a phenomenal curriculum that we follow. I have to brag on Pam just for a moment for taking part in that. And in our curriculum, in one of our support documents, there is a line that talks about ECE not as a school readiness. It's not that we are getting children ready for school and the more important things of life, but it's that this 0 to 5, we are provided the opportunity to prepare these children to have a readiness to learn, to want to learn about absolutely anything that the mind could imagine. So for me to talk about how valuable the ECE stream is, I mean, I get very choked up. Play is the most important work of a child. The most important part of our life in 0 to 5 is to play. And so during this pandemic of all these new challenges and all these new ways of doing things, it does hinder our ability to just naturally let that child become who they're meant to be. And there are so many differences in every child. Speaking from a mom of 5, you know, you want to make sure each child is getting exactly what they need, and they're not just that their needs are being met, but that they're able to exceed and go above in life and want to learn things and be a part of this world that we're living in. And because of all this diversity, I really find ECE, it's getting better. We're more valued. I feel more seen by the government as of late, especially here in New Brunswick. But we're not just a babysitting service getting them ready for school, the important work. It's that we are doing the important work with them, and we need help and we need support with that, whether it's financial, whether it's having more staff on board so that each one of those unique individual children can be supported and encouraged in whatever it is that they need. You know, we don't have the same school system, ECE system here in New Brunswick as the school. So we don't have a staff supply list or an EA list or anything. We just have a small staff and we try to wear all the hats. But I really feel that the more government is involved and values what we do, the more support they'll see that, you know, we need every child being looked at as an individual, and for us to be able to come together and say, okay, how can we make this work as a whole across Canada to really value what we are doing in this 0 to 5 gap of each and every child's life. I mean, there's nothing more valuable to me than those first 5 years. So thank you for the opportunity.
Sure, lots of people agree with you. Okay, thank you. Song.
Thank you, Pam. So last week when we talked about this, I got a little extremely passionate about it, because I was asking those colleagues and folks of ECE out there, like, is this too good to be true to build just one national system that accessible to all the family, affordable, and also have a decent compensation, sustained compensation to all the workers like us? We are qualified professionals. Like, from my perspective, like I lost one job because of the pandemic. I'm lucky enough to keep another part-time job and survive, right? However, how many of us ECE, when you search the job posting, you still see the minimum wage out there? Speak to your college degree to be an early childhood educator, and how many of us lost the job? The news, the media saying that we need childcare so parents can go out and work. However, what if the childcare system is not affordable and not accessible? I work with about 500 family who are students at University of Toronto, and I open a drop-in center for them. Some of them have children with diverse abilities and exceptionalities. And also this pandemic hit them hard, even harder, because how can they leave a child with someone they not sure if they can trust, but that is the only choice. I'm not saying that some childcare provider is not decent. However, we need a quality system, a nationwide system, a universal system that has a decent and sustained funding from the government. And we need the collaboration from provincial, territorial, degree to realize that ECEs are the first people you go to and you put the money to them, and because they are already in the system, even work for underwage and not enough compensation. We here because we're passionate, we here because we want to work with the children, right? So I think that's what I want to see. Quality childcare that's accessible, affordable, and also a decent and sustained compensation for all the qualified workers in the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. Daniel.
When I first heard about the Canadian government talking about more funding for our field, like, I have to say I jumped. I was so happy because, working as a sub, I'm making $1 more than minimum wage in this province right now, which isn't a living wage in ECE. Like, if it weren't for the fact that I was also working part-time in the evening and I'm a student, like, this would not be sustainable. And I know many centers right now struggle to find subs and keep subs on their sub lists. And, it just, echoing Safa's point, during the pandemic, like a lot of centers, we were told, oh, you're essential workers, you have to stay open. And it's like, all right, we're essential, but we're not getting paid like we're essential. We're being treated like we're disposable. And so when I first heard the federal government say that, I was quite hopeful. But that said, I also remember the last time the federal government was in minority, they also promised universal childcare, and then they lost the election. So I'm somewhat pessimistic on this point. And the last thing that I've been thinking about with sort of universal national funding programs, and the thing that I'm left wondering is, I see so much diversity, even just in Vancouver, of what our programs look like. And I can't even imagine what diversity looks like across our country for how our programs are run. And I wonder really, what does a centralized funding model mean for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rarely does money come without strings. And so I wonder if as hopeful as I am, because we're underpaid and we're overworked and we're underappreciated, I also wonder, is the federal government going to want certain standards tied to it that, we may not appreciate or may not be sustainable, etc. So that's sort of my thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, really helpful thoughts. Be helpful if everyone was consulted and how different things are across the country, just in terms of your point of the kind of constraints of centralization. I think we have one more person here. Is that Veronique? Is that right?
Oui.
Mhm.
Oui. Un vendredi matin, fin mars, ici au Québec, le gouvernement nous a annoncé que pour les 2 semaines suivantes, on fermait tous les services de garde et toutes les écoles. 2 jours plus tard, un dimanche soir, on apprenait que non, il fallait tout réouvrir parce que les travailleurs essentiels avaient besoin de notre travail. En quelques heures, notre réseau entier s'est mobilisé pour être capable d'offrir le soutien à ces familles-là. Puis on a réussi. On s'est rendu au travail dans une ville fantôme qui était complètement vide. La peur au ventre, on ne savait pas à quoi on avait affaire, c'était quoi le virus, quel impact ça allait faire, est-ce qu'on allait être est-ce qu'on allait tomber malade? Est-ce qu'on allait travailler avec des enfants qui sont malades? Est-ce que nos enfants, à nous, notre famille, allait tomber malade aussi? Mais on a mis toutes nos incertitudes, nos peurs, nos incompréhensions de côté, puis on a été travailler sans hésiter parce que notre travail, c'est d'assurer le bien-être des enfants, leur intégrité physique et morale, puis même le chaos d'une pandémie mondiale ne pourra jamais empêcher une éducatrice de mettre les besoins des enfants avant les siens. Pendant le confinement, on s'est rendu au travail à tous les matins pour s'occuper des familles des travailleurs essentiels, pour ensuite rentrer à notre maison, s'occuper de nos familles, mais aussi, ce n'était pas terminé. Il fallait se mettre devant nos ordinateurs pour s'occuper des familles de nos milieux qui étaient restées derrière à la maison. On s'est assis pour créer des capsules éducatives pour continuer de stimuler nos enfants, fait des concours de grimaces pour essayer de continuer à les faire rire, mais aussi essayer de créer des capsules informatives pour les parents qui étaient là, mais qui étaient complètement dépassés par la charge de travail et la charge parentale à laquelle ils faisaient face. On l'a fait sans lésiner sur les efforts pour faire sentir à chacun des enfants qu'ils étaient importants, qu'ils avaient leur place à eux, puis qu'il y avait des gens autour d'eux pour les protéger et prendre soin d'eux. Être éducatrice, c'est se lever à l'aurore à tous les matins pour aller accueillir des petits êtres, tout plein de questions, de rires, de questionnements, de découvertes et de défis. C'est d'être toujours présente puis à l'affût des moindres petits signes pour essayer de déceler de quoi ils ont besoin, puis comment on peut faire pour les aider à y arriver. C'est préparer des activités à la maison le soir parce qu'on n'a pas le temps durant la journée parce qu'on manque de temps. C'est souvent même pas avoir de pause parce que les subventions qui concernent les ratios limitent le personnel au strict minimum. Puis le strict minimum, quand tu as des dizaines d'enfants avec des besoins, c'est pas assez. Être éducatrice, ça va toujours être de mettre la priorité des enfants au-dessus des nôtres. C'est aussi être épuisé par les tâches connexes qui s'ajoutent, puis de savoir que le moindre manque de vigilance ou de patience de notre part, mais ensuite de ça, ça va avoir des impacts sur les enfants. On ne peut pas se le permettre. Mais on a continué à faire notre travail quand même si le contexte de pandémie nous demandait de plus en plus de vigilance et de plus en plus de travail. Pendant le déconfinement progressif, ensuite, on a dû s'adapter à la charge de désinfection. On a dû prendre en considération les bulles sociales, le manque de personnel, tout en continuant notre mandat pédagogique de continuer à faire de la planification et du soutien aux enfants puis au développement de leurs habiletés, de leurs capacités. On l'a fait en espérant que le gouvernement se rende compte de l'importance de notre métier dans l'équilibre, dans le maintien de l'équilibre de notre société. En espérant qu'il y ait une reconnaissance de notre labeur et de l'impact de notre travail. Quand nos milieux ont commencé à crier à l'aide parce que le personnel était à bout de souffle et qu'on n'en avait plus assez, quand on a essayé d'expliquer qu'on n'arrivait plus à conjuguer le surplus de tâches liées à la crise sanitaire et l'offre de services de garde de qualité, qui est notre mandat premier, on espérait avoir de l'aide, mais on s'est fait dire de mettre de côté notre volet éducatif de qualité et on s'est fait dire de désinfecter plutôt que de planifier des activités qui allaient subvenir aux besoins de nos enfants. Plutôt que de prendre des mesures pour contrer le manque de personnel, comme l'amélioration des conditions de travail, notre ministère a décidé de diminuer le ratio d'éducatrices qualifiées présents en service de garde. Quand notre manque de personnel nous empêchait de préserver les bulles qu'on créait au sein de notre milieu, on s'est fait dire, ben faites-le quand vous le pouvez, faites le mieux que vous pouvez. Quand j'entends que les services de garde sont une partie fondamentale de la relance économique et que je vois les milieux qui sont en train de dépérir et les éducatrices qui sont en train de tomber sous les charges de travail et le sous-financement, je suis découragée. Nos enfants ont besoin de nous plus que jamais et les répercussions se font sentir de plus en plus. Notre réseau est saturé, puis on n'arrive plus à conjuguer les exigences. Les services de garde de qualité sont essentiels au développement des enfants, mais aussi à celui de notre société. On est rendu à un point critique et on a besoin de prendre les moyens pour aider les enfants, pour aider les éducatrices, puis pour aider notre société. Il faut mettre l'emphase sur des services de qualité offerts aux enfants parce que ce que nous leur offrons aujourd'hui, mais ça va dresser la table pour notre société de demain.
Thank you. Well, you really point out what a health risk it is and the whole uncertainty and the commitment of people. And as someone in the chat wrote, passion doesn't pay the bills. Right, yeah, exactly. So I believe that that's everyone for this topic. And I thank you again, your commitment to your work and the details with which you present what you're doing is very powerful and compelling. So Alex, over to you for the next question topic. Thank you.
I will just remind people at home or wherever you are listening, if you want to read the summary of what Véronique said in French, you can scroll through the chat and you'll find it from Joanne. Thank you for that. And so Véronique said it a little bit about the kickstarting the economy. So the media are putting it a lot forward. And I am supposed to say that in French. Donc, les médias considèrent que les services éducatifs de la petite enfance, c'est un élément super important pour relancer l'économie. Et donc, qu'en pensez-vous de cette position des médias quant à l'économie des services de garde?
So the media is framing ECE as important to kickstart the economy, and I think there's 5 people who are going to speak to what they think about that.
Yes. And so the first one would be Brittany.
Hello. Wow, this has been such a lovely morning. So here I go. This is my question that I'm very passionate about. I'm excited to speak about this morning. So when we talk about ECE as being important to kickstart the economy, that is only one lens in which to view childcare. And when we only hear stories about kickstarting the economy, I fear that we're devaluing early learning communities, and the importance of early learning education is becoming lost in that narrative. A place to learn, play, grow, to be cared for is turning into, this is a place for children to go so families can go out and contribute. And I'm not okay with that. Here in Alberta, the message of economy is very disconnected. And we know that childcare contributes to our province's economic model. That's not unknown information. For every dollar that's invested in childcare, there's a $2 return to the economy. It's impossible not to view childcare as a way to kickstart, but that's not the only thing to think about here. And in Alberta, childcare cost for families is a major barrier. So this is where the disconnect is coming from. It can cost upwards of $1,200 a month for one child to attend a childcare program here. And that makes it very challenging for families to return to the workplace when that is what they need to pay for someone to take care of their child, and not just take care of their child, for a place where they can drop them off, as Sanjay was saying, and feel comfortable and happy and secure when they go into work, so that they can do a better job when they're at work, because they know their child is being well taken care of and having quality early learning experiences. So I get very passionate about this. If the story we tell is one of economic importance, then we need to tell the whole story. And a major part of that story, or the story, is that families are not having access to quality, affordable childcare. And that is what is going to support our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And we now go to Christina from New Brunswick.
That was awesome, Brittany. I really just want to echo that it's a small lens that people are looking through when saying, yes, it's a kickstart to the economy. We know that, we do know that. And the point is, coming from a rural community, yes, absolutely it is. Like I said, we have 600 people in our village, and our daycare holds only 60, and we are full to capacity because all of these families are returning to work. But what does that mean for us? Because we are part of that economy, you know, like we're there providing this service, this job, and it needs to be valued that, you know, no, it's not just so you can go do the more important work and we'll just be over here doing this, but that, you know, we're creating the future here, so to speak. And the fact that, you know, financially we're not compensated nearly enough for what it is that we do, and the vulnerable position we're putting ourselves in when we have families at home, you know, coming and being open and remaining open so that families can go out to work. You know, I just feel like there is a huge disconnect there on what does that actually mean. And like you said, passion doesn't pay the bills, but if you're in this field, it's usually for the passion of it, not for the paycheck. But it would be nice to kind of see those come up to par. You know, the passion is here, the paycheck is here. And if we're talking about balancing the economy a little bit, let's bring them together, if that makes sense at all.
It does. Thank you. And Janice, what are your thoughts on this?
I think I'm going to be echoing a lot of everyone's thoughts so far. And when I first saw this question, I agree, obviously, 100%, but it shouldn't be a new concept. I mean, I think we know that these early years are the most formative years, and we know how important our job is. And I think that for the media to be saying only now and framing us now as kickstarting the economy, I mean, we've always been such a big part of the economy. And there's a lot of frustrations, and I know that we've been expressing a lot of frustrations from our field, and that shouldn't be taking away from our passion, right, and what we do and how much work we put into and how much love we put into what we do. But the fact that as professionals, that we have to even have this discussion, where a lot of the times I feel educators in our field, we kind of almost have to choose sometimes between, okay, this is what we love to do, but is it sustainable for ourselves? And we're seeing that a lot during the pandemic, where it's almost like, it's not to say that you have to choose between your job and living, but it's becoming more and more apparent, especially during this pandemic. I mean, before the pandemic started, and even now, I know so many ECEs who work 2 or 3 jobs. I myself I'm working full-time, and I'd be doing 8 hours a day, and then at night I would be doing a couple shifts at a restaurant, doing another 6-7 hours, and then going to bed for maybe 5 hours, and then getting up and then doing the job again. And it's exhausting, and it takes away from what we're able to offer the children during the day. But it's living in Vancouver, you kind of have to, just to make ends meet. And everything, I think, is being compounded now with the pandemic. We're seeing it's always been an issue, but it's even more of an issue now with the lack of subs, the lack of quality subs. How a lot of people in our profession have had to leave the field because they find a job that pays better. And it's not necessarily because they love that other job better, but it's what pays the bills. And it's frustrating because we shouldn't have to choose our job based on that, or solely based on that. And it's even just the quality of care, I find. It's like you said, it's not universal. Just from one center to another, it varies so much. And I think it's hard for parents to be able to feel like their children are in a safe environment or in a safe place when it does vary so much from center to center, and you don't really know exactly what kind of care you're getting, because depending on whether it's, you know, a licensed childcare or unlicensed group care, you really don't know what to expect or what you're going to get. Yeah, so I think there's a huge disconnect with how we're being framed in media and how we're valued and how we're compensated, and there needs to be a change. And I know there has been changes, but there needs to be more.
Thank you. So there is the discourse of the economy, but there's also all those other things we're bringing in that should be heard also. And Daniel.
So my baby brother and his wife, they recently just finished their mat leave with their first child and had to find childcare in Edmonton. Because at first they thought, oh, the pandemic's on, we're going to be able to do this. You know, I'll work in the morning, you'll work in the evening, and we'll split the care. And as I'm sure all of you can imagine, that just worked not at all. Because toddlers in the background of Zoom meetings for work make it very clear to all of us that that even if childcare doesn't affect you directly, it's affecting you indirectly, that everyone needs childcare because everyone needs work. And I think that's sort of what is driving the media's focus on childcare and the economy, is because it's never become so real for so many people. And so part of me is like, all right, we're finally getting attention, maybe not for all the right reasons, but we're getting attention. The questions I'm still left with in this, though, is when we focus on such a narrow band of what childcare is for, I wonder about, what about workers' rights? What about women's rights? What about a child's right to early childhood education? When we continue to frame early childhood care and education only through the lens of the economy, we forget that like Janice and me are working 2 jobs. You know, we forget that a lot of our ECEs are struggling to make ends meet. We forget that parents are paying thousands of dollars to get into childcares, and because they're so desperate, they take the first spot that they can find because there's not enough centers out there. We forget that this pandemic has affected women more than anyone else. Women's jobs were the jobs that most evaporated, and because of gender role expectations that still exist in our society, women were often the ones that were expected to stay home and take care of the children. I read somewhere in a paper recently, and it was just staggering how many families had to make that choice, and it was the mom that had to stay home. And so I think when we just frame it through the economy and not through children's rights and women's rights and workers' rights, we miss a big part of why we're so important. You know, it's the schools all closed across this country because they were thinking about children's rights and protecting children and protecting families. And they thought, oh, we can pause education briefly and then jump back into it. But for those of us who are in childcare, we're being told, oh no, you can't work because, or you can't quit because then nurses can't go to work and then other people can't go to work. And it really, that disconnect of schools closing and us staying open really drove to me how our rights are seen differently and our jobs are seen differently. I see education and care as being intimately tied together. You're always doing both. And I think society is really going, oh, well, school is care and ECE is, or sorry, school is education and ECE is care. And they're missing that we are all doing both, you know, and that's just sort of what I thought about that.
Thank you so much. That was very eloquently said. I just like to notice that there's a lot of what is being said today that I can relate to what has been pointed out in the first webinar too. And I'm really glad for all of your expertise. And it brings us slowly to the next question, which is exactly that. Quels autres récits, quelles autres histoires, quelles autres perspectives doivent être entendues au regard de l'éducation à la petite enfance?
Thank you, Merci. So what other narratives need to be told is the question. How else can we be talking about early childhood education, and why is that important? And I think we're back to Brittany and Daniel on this one. So Brittany, if you'd like to start.
Okay. The narrative of thriving early childhood communities is one that needs to be told. Families and children's returning to cherished spaces after closures or restrictions on the spaces. So some children attending care and other children needing to stay home, and then being able to reopen and return to those spaces and what that means. When we reopened here, noticing, if I'll use the word magic and joy of the children returning and seeing their educators and seeing their peers and reuniting after this time away, that's a beautiful story. That speaks to what we do. And that is a wonderful narrative that should be shared out with everyone. I think for me, seeing that outweighed a bit of the fear. That outweighed the fear of, can I do this safely? Am I going to be able to operate this program to keep every single person in here as safe as I am possibly capable of doing, you know, during this pandemic? And that helped me. It helped me to watch these connections being remade in our program, and I'm very grateful for that. Our job is in early learning is to ensure safety always. It's not our only job, but it's a major part of our job. And in this pandemic, it's posed new challenges for educators on how to do that. And the stress and the worry and the compliance that sits on educators' shoulders is so heavy right now. But I think if we're able to hold it high enough, right, as adults in these programs, if we're able to hold that high enough, then we can also look and view and embrace the joy that is play and community. And that's the narrative that's also unfolding alongside of this. And I'm grateful that I get to see that every day in our program, watching children continue to play, even though everything else is going on around them. But again, I think it speaks to the level of work that ECEs are doing in the field to hold that worry for them during this time when they're in this space, right? And it's beautiful to see, and it sounds like all of these programs who are speaking, there's bits of that in everything you're saying today. So it makes me hopeful.
Yeah, the power of the relationships and being together in community. Thank you. And Daniel.
You know, with all the shifts in political politics and political politics in national politics, it's really easy to pay attention to what's going on in Ottawa right now. But for me, what I've really been noticing and paying attention to is everything that's been happening in local governments. And I think that's one of the places that we have to, even knowing we're coming together in this conference across the country right now, we also all have to pay attention to what's happening locally. So like here in BC, we just had a provincial election. And for the first time in my life, all three major political parties had a different plan for universal childcare in our province. And my jaw just dropped, right? Like, you always sort of expect the left-wing parties will do one and the right-wing parties will say that's too expensive. And I think the pandemic has made it so it might actually happen no matter what in this province, which just overjoys me. But then I also look at what's happening municipally, and the municipal government here in Vancouver has passed a rule that all new elementary schools that get built have to have childcares built right into them. And so I was recently able to visit one, and it was amazing. You had this elementary school, and on top, there was a daycare that had that connection directly to the kindergartens, and there was an infant care. And so I just really keep going back, like, you know, our Constitution is a funny thing, but a lot of the sort of power that goes with childcare, healthcare, education, it's all a provincial responsibility. And I think if we want to affect things nationally, we also have to continually push our local governments, because I think it's going to go sort of grassroots up rather than from the top down. So, you know, I think to make a national change, we just keep pushing provincially, and we keep pushing in our cities to see that change.
Thank you. The power of the local to help us all come together in different ways. Thank you. So we have one more topic. This one is the experiences of children. How are they making meaning of COVID? And Alex is going to take that over in French.
Donc, durant toute cette période de pandémie, quelles sont les expériences des enfants? Comment donnent-ils du sens à ce que c'est la COVID dans leurs conversations ou dans leurs jeux, par exemple? Et nous allons entendre à ce sujet Christina first, from New Northwest Territory.
I think I've been seeing a lot of the pandemic and, you know, the kids' understanding of COVID-19 and what that all means coming out in the school setting. And also while we were distance learning, calling the kids each week and hearing them say, why are you at school? Why am I not at school? And no, we're all at home. And what does that look like? And what does that mean for everyone? And, you know, really trying to help them understand what's going on and to feel safe and to know that just because these things are happening does not mean that they're in an unsafe situation. A lot of what I've noticed is it's coming out in their language and how they're describing situations and things, and kids saying, oh, when the big sick is over, you can come to my house and we'll make waffles together, and just different language. And, you know, oh, the corona, we can't do that because of the corona, and helping them through reading stories and building that understanding of what's going on in the world, and but also, you know, just having that sense of safety and that these things are new and they can be a little bit scary, and, you know, they're scary for all of us, and building that sense of safety and resiliency with them. And just understanding, we usually say to them, you know, this won't last forever. This is just a temporary thing. And, you know, one day things, you know, we'll kind of get back to something that they see as normal. And with my students, like, I loop with them, so I'll have some of them for 3 years, and a lot of them reminisce about things. Oh, remember when we all ate lunch together? Remember when we used to get to play with this? And helping them understand why there's certain toys and certain activities we can't do anymore, and we can't gather as a school, and we can't play with costumes and, you know, different things that, you know, it's hard for them to understand. But I feel like guiding them through that process is very important, and just, you know, making them feel safe and comfortable. So, and, you know, helping them to build new memories and connections throughout the school. And one thing we're actually putting in place right now is a school mail system where they can write letters to people in other classrooms and things, and they can get delivered. And just that sense of, you know, connection between everyone. Even though we can't be together, we can still be connected.
It's very nice. And Janice.
I think, yeah, expanding on some of what Christina is saying, I think we really have to give it to these children and just how resilient they are. I mean, we came back from lockdown and I couldn't believe these kids were all expert hand washers. Like they knew all about, you know, the 20-second rule, how you have to scrub under their nails, but just how quickly they adapted to the whole situation and how almost seamlessly they were able to integrate it into their language and their play and their understanding of their world. I mean, I had one kid, we were going for a walk and he's like, you know, when this corona is over, maybe you can come to my house and you can, you know, you can play in my room and I can show you. And it's just, I think these kids are doing the best that they can to deal with all the stresses around them. And I mean, we're seeing a lot of anxiety in kids these days. And I think that we need to kind of balance COVID and all these new policies and procedures, along with a lot of compassion and understanding. Because, I mean, if you think about it, it was such a big switch, right? You go from, you're telling these kids to share and you're telling these kids to play together. And then all of a sudden it's, oh, no, you can't hold hands when you go for a walk. Or, oh, no, that's your Play-Doh. You can't share your Play-Doh with so-and-so. Like so-and-so has to keep their Play-Doh. And it's just, I mean, if you think about it, it's just, I think that these kids are dealing with so much. And right now, a lot of the focus has been on cleanliness and sanitizing and, you know, keeping germs to yourself. But I think we also need to consider it's still about their play, and the playing together and that community feeling, and yeah, just showing a lot of compassion to the families as well, and all the stresses that they're going through.
Thank you very much. And we now have Brittany.
Thank you. I wanted to start by sharing a story that took place on our playground right when we reopened. So we have the children created an ice cream store on our playground, and they call for ice cream. I don't know if anyone else has this experience on their playgrounds when children yell, ice cream, come get your ice cream, right? And you walk up and you go to get your ice cream, and there's all the flavors you can imagine, any flavor really. And you can't, at our ice cream store, it now operates at reduced hours. So you can't always get your ice cream due to COVID. So you walk up to the window to get your ice cream and then it's closed due to COVID and you have to walk away and they call you back again, right? That's the game on our playground right now. And that really got me thinking about children's meaning making during COVID and how we are seeing this interwoven into their play now. And it's moving into their play and into the way they navigate their world. And I think as ECEs, as we document children's lived experiences in our program, that this is something, again, that we can't miss, that it's our job to document and, you know, interpret in our own way, imagine what it is that they're trying to tell us. We don't know for sure, but we can imagine what they're trying to tell us through this documentation and keep that story for a little while and then hand it back to them. And we hand these stories back to them that they can then reflect on later. You know, who knows what memories they're going to have from this, but we can capture some memories for them right now through our documentation of children's play and learning through COVID, and hand that back to them later on. And no one knows what it's going to look like for them later, but I think we're in a really great place to be able to do that. And I'm hopeful once again that those stories will be very meaningful for them and for their families and later on. And as an EC, like as a profession, I mean, when we look back at this pandemic, and there are going to be things that that we need to be recording, we need to be writing down, that we need to say, like, we moved out on the other end of this over here in this new space, and that's what it was like. That's important. That's really important. So I think journal and document and capture these stories for children and families and for ourselves. The children are speaking to us through their play, and it's our job to listen, and that's why we do this, right? So that's how I feel about that.
Thank you very much for all of you for sharing all those experiences and stories and anecdotes and thoughts. And before we move to the next part, I would like to ask Mary if anything came up in the chat or in the Q&A regarding any one of those topics we shared.
Hello, Alex. Thank you. And thank you to everyone. I'm Mari Pigini at Early Childhood Programs at UBC. There's lots of comments, and I would like to sort of highlight some of the topics are echoing, although you've been reading them. But I also wanted to bring a question from Dr. Irisberger. How do you see, and this is with regards to the whole political aspect that a couple of the questions touch, how do you see early childhood educators becoming a political voice across Canada? And this is for anyone or all who would like to respond to this. And then I'd like to provide a few points. So I thought that it was a very important question because you brought up about the national strategy and then hopes about it, a little bit of distrust. This is going to be more of the same. And then you also brought with Daniel's comments, the importance of starting from the local and then going up. So then this question came about. So again, how do you see early childhood educators becoming a political voice across Canada? And I don't know if Alex, you want to say it in French as well. I know that it's being translated, but the audiovisual helps for anyone.
Donc, quelles sont vos pensées en lien entre la politique et être un éducateur à la petite enfance? Comment peut-on utiliser cette voix d'éducateur pour influencer les politiques?
Would anybody like to speak to it? Or any comments, any thoughts?
Daniel?
I'm just sort of thinking, how do I put this into words? Years ago, I worked at a retail store, and we unionized, and I organized the first contract and everything else, and it was exhausting, and I eventually had to quit and leave. And I think when I think about childcare, and I think about what we need to do politically to gain a voice, this might not answer Iris's question, but I've begun to change how I see about things. Rather than what can we do or how do I do this, I like to think of it more as a marathon where you run as long as you can and you carry the torch. And then when you're tired, hopefully you pass that torch on to someone else. That many of the opportunities I've had in ECE, I've had because mentors and people who I think are giants in the field have sort of taken me under their wing for a brief period of time. And I only hope that I have that opportunity to do that as well. So it's less about what can we concretely do and more about how can we support each other to create opportunities for leadership for everyone. Yeah, that's sort of what I'm thinking.
And Christina, you had raised your finger. Did you want to add something, Christina from New Brunswick? Sorry.
No, I think that's great. And I just wanted to say too, for us to continue to be a voice for that 0 to 5 age, that voice that can't necessarily be heard. We've spent years developing our expertise in this field, and for us to be able to bring the voice of the needs of the children in 0 to 5 to the political world and say, like, listen, we're not just passing time here to get to the more important work, like I said before, but we have a voice. We are representing every being from 0 to 5, and just for us to be able to continue to validate that and really drive it home at how crucial and how important it is that, you know, we live in the lives of these children. And yeah.
So back to Iris Berger. So you had two people responding. I don't know if Brittany, did you want to add something to it? I saw a little finger coming up.
I was thinking about what Daniel was saying. I'm Christina. And I think in early learning, and this is just my own, like, just what I think, that we go in and we gain education on play and learning and supporting children. And then there's this piece of advocacy that we also really need to explore, because I think there's some, I don't know, maybe there's some hesitancy from how do you take something up to a political platform when that's not your area, right? And so how do we educate ourselves and learn about how to do what Daniel was saying about this grassroots and bring it up and up and up when who's the voice? Who's the voice for ECE? And it's us. And how do we explore doing that if it's not something within our wheelhouse? So that's something to think about too, is how do we're so passionate, I can hear that from all of you today, but then learning and exploring how to actually move it and take action. I think leadership in the field of early learning is something that's going to become more and more important as we move forward. There's so many people who have done so much work already, and now it's our turn, right? And how, I don't know, I'm wondering how to do that most effectively, as sounds like many of you are as well.
Right. Thank you, Brittany.
Sorry, Mary, can I just share my quick point? Right now we like 2020 moving on to 21. Advocating for our profession is new to me too. When I started take night courses at the college after ECE job, just to learn about administration and policy around our profession. One thing that I learned from that course is like using your voice to project you advocating for something. Right now we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have survey that we can do. We have so many organizations. I'm speaking about Ontario that I'm on. I am a member of AECEO that's done a lot of work for us, and also Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare. There's so many organizations that doing work and consolidate our voice and then project it out. If you can engage in those communities, and also, you know what I did as a student, ECE student, I sent a letter to MPP. Just curious because like my future, I'm jumping into this profession. Like I want to see change. I want to see better future for myself, for family, for community. So yeah, don't be afraid to engage and speak your thoughts. Yeah.
It's really interesting to hear everyone speak. We do have one more thing we want to do with those collages, right? So is this the moment to do that?
I think it would be great because the themes that came up really speak to, you know, the things that came up through the chat that you have all read really speak to the messages and the beauty of the art expressing the collage, and it would be so sad not to share them. I agree with you, Pam.
So shall we do that now, Esther? Is it Esther or Christine who's got that?
Which would you like, the website or the selection on the PowerPoint?
Well, there's two things, isn't there? So that we have quite a collection on our website of people from across Canada who've brought images in, and then some of the conversationalists have picked an image to speak to. So I don't really know the answer to that question, Christine.
I'll start with the PowerPoint.
Okay.
And I believe Safa had a comment.
Safa?
Yeah.
Maybe you want to introduce a little bit more about like what is the photo collages and.
Yeah, I will. I took these photos from my class to share with you some of the change that took place in our classroom. However, instead of just talking about the challenges that we faced. I think it would be better to talk about also the positive things that came out from all of this. For example, you can see that the tables are divided in a way to give the children their personal space and their own set of materials. Also, while waiting, each child has enough distance, which helped avoid not pushing anymore. Also, the fourth picture shows our dramatic play area, which used to have many fake food items, spoons and cups. Now we have removed all of these stuff and use and replace it with flyers in which each child can cut out their favorite meals or ingredients required to cook it. This way, the children are learning how to use the scissors, knowing the numbers by looking at the prices, as well as knowing more new words. The last photo shows how we turned our stand table into a display for dinosaurs. Every day they add something for it. So we have to be positive and like things happen and we have to like go on. That's it. Thank you.
Is this song?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to speak to it?
That would, if you could take a minute or so to speak to it, that would be terrific.
So what inspired me, because when I heard other ECEs on the panel talking about interaction with children, I almost cried because I miss that so much. I used to run a drop-in center in the morning and work at the after-school program, and especially with children with diverse abilities and exceptionalities. And that part of my job is like the most honoring moment of my day. And I don't have that since March break. And this is what I do on daily basis right now. I created my own website, Songs Daily Drop In, if you guys want to check it out. I also created a YouTube channel. I had zero experience of this before the pandemic. But as I want to stay connected as an ECE, I want family to know that I'm still there for them. Even when the child cry at night, they want to see song face, they can go on YouTube or Facebook and just see. And one picture that made I cry is one of the girl. The dad sent a message to me, Song, it's not fair that the kids get to see you, but you don't get to see the kids. So he sent me a photo of a girl reaching on the screen, try to touch my face. And that made me cry. I'm like, that's what I miss the most. And hopefully we are still during the pandemic, but once all of this over, we can, get back to whatever new normal it is. However, I want to use this power to encourage ECE to know your power. This is some organization that I've been involved with in terms of advocating for our profession nationwide. And also, I want to read something quick that I wrote on the website. How many tasks, tab, or app that can ECE fit on one screen? Early childhood educators are evolving, resilient, and dedicated. We have done everything in our power to support and stay connected with children and family. As a bonus, behind the scenes, there are still worries and anxiety related to job security, work conditions, unpaid sick days, finances, the lack of support, and the list unfortunately continues on and on. Sometimes we've forgotten that as an ECEs, we are still have our own family and some of us are parents. Then you can sigh, take a deep breath, count to 10 if you need to. Once we walk back into the room or hop on the Zoom with those children, those smile of genuine, caring, loving faces bring back ours again. So I wrote that from my heart, and I hope that inspire some of you guys that we all in this together and we're gonna get through this.
That's lovely. Thank you. I think this is Brittany.
Yes, this one really spoke to me. We keep our distance now so that the next time we are together, no one is missing. And I was holding a couple of boxes of lights to go out onto our playground to light up a few trees out there. And children were passing by me and they said, well, what are those lights for? Right. And I said, oh, well, these are, I'm going to light up our playground. We'll put these out on the playground. I said, it's getting darker now. Have any of you noticed lights in your community? And they said, yeah, I have lights on my house right now. And then another child said, I don't get to see my grandparents at Christmas this year. That was immediately how the switch went. The first one was, I have lights on my house. And then the second child's response was, I don't get to see my grandparents at Christmas this year. So when I saw this, it reminded me that the pandemic and COVID, although we're doing everything we can, it is at the forefront of minds right now. And families are not being able to be connected. And it's different than anything we've experienced before, or I've experienced, the children have experienced. And when he said that to me, it was like a realization, yeah, because the next time we hope your grandparents are there, right? And I don't know, that's kind of all. I was like very emotional when it happened. I'm still emotional about it now. And this image brought that really into my attention, and a reminder once again about the responsibility I feel to ensure I'm doing everything I can for quality, engaging programming and keeping it safe so that these children do get to see their grandparents again. Yeah.
Wow, that's very emotional. Yes. I think we have one more person. Is that correct, Mallory? Oh no, two more, Mallory and then Janice.
This is Christina, this one.
Oh, sorry.
Christina from Northwest Territories.
Okay.
Yeah, this collage that someone submitted really spoke to me, and just kind of my experiences that I've been having with the pandemic and the return to school and that. And I think for me, I myself can often find that the pandemic and you know, hearing Brittany's story is, for the kids, it's very dark and it can be a very daunting thing, and it can be very overwhelming for everyone. And you know, as educators and teachers of young children, you know, we have the ability to kind of, you know, help to think outside of the box and really collaborate and support each other and support our children and families. And although we don't necessarily get to have the same experiences we've had in the past or get to do things the same way, it doesn't mean that we can't create new experiences and still find ways to learn and adventure and explore that, you know, adhere to the restrictions that we all face being in-person learning right now. And I really liked the sentiment in what was written here, and especially, you know, making sweet lemonade out of the sourest lemons. And as terrible as COVID-19 has been and putting these restrictions in, I must say, like, there has been a lot of beautiful learning that I've found come from my kids this fall, and as they've come together, and just changes we've had to make, but just new experiences that we've gotten to have together, and making new memories.
Yeah, that power of figuring out how to be together at this moment. Is that Mallory speaking to this one?
Mallory, sorry, yes.
Okay, thanks.
It was actually a different one, but I have the quote written down from the person that made the collage, but it's not mine. It was very simple and to the point, which is the type of person I am. So it actually wrote, my interpretation of ECEs during these times, like leaves. ECEs adapt themselves to changes around them, no matter what the situation. So I thought that best related to me. And I believe that it is very true because while working in the field before the pandemic, it was our responsibility to adapt to new families, to the children, to new routines and new activities and a lot more. So now I think it's our responsibility to adapt to the world changes that are going around us as well. Like if we could do it then, we can do it now. This is a trying time, but I try to look at this again as a learning opportunity to challenge ourselves to these new experiences. I understand that change is very scary, but I've learned that you cannot allow your fears to stop you from growing and evolving and progressing to the new changes. Thank you.
Thank you. So Christine, is there one more then?
Janice.
Yes, Janice.
When I saw this picture, it really just kind of reminded me how, well, as ECEs, yes, we're overworked, underpaid, all of that. At the same time, we draw a lot of our energy from the children and vice versa. And I think this light bulb here just really spoke to me about the future that these kids are going to create and how much impact we have on it, and how privileged we are to be able to be in a profession to do that. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. There's a few minutes left, and Iris had suggested another question, I think. Was there anything anybody else wished to say that they didn't get a chance to say? Well, it was spectacular. I want to thank everyone so much, and I wonder if Esther wants to close out with the website and all of the images that are up there.
Sure, I'll share my screen.
This is the one you were speaking to, Mallory, I think.
I think this is where we began.
Mm-hmm. Esther, maybe you could tell people how they could still submit their thoughts, images to the website.
Right, you could still go to our main page. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you can still register, and within the registration is where you can submit your photos still to our website, and we'll keep posting as they come in. If you submitted a longer document, if you go to our events section and go to webinar 2, at the bottom, we've linked all the longer documents on there.
Thank you. So if no one else has anything to add, I would say thank you again. Merci. Liwin, Alex, did you want to add anything, or does anyone else want to?
That was very, very powerful and emotional and thoughtful, and a lot of things is going on across the Canada and across everyone's heads and hearts. And I am very grateful for every and each of you today. And I send to Christine for the closing notes.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that in the chat, I sort of presented 2 very brief summaries of what the conversation that went in the chat that was quite rich. And this conversation is also saved. So, you know, people will want to revisit, but if you wanted to sort of check and then see if there was another final connection, you have it right there. And the website link again. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for coming and for this rich conversation. Please do send in your stories, your photos, your collages, and be part of this larger cross-Canada conversation. And thank you so much to our moderators and our conversationalists. It's been a lovely morning.
Hard to say
Thank
goodbye.
you. It's hard to say goodbye. Should we just,
Hard to leave
you know,
the Zoom room.
at another time we would have been having lunch or tea, but
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. We'll be in contact. Thank you again, Christina, Daniel, and Janice on my end. Thank you to Sovo Technologies. Oh my goodness.
Yes, it was good.
And thank you to Joanne for translating also on demand.